Welcome to my live cast. I'm Hidemi Woods, uh, a singer-songwriter based in Japan. Welcome. This is my live cast where I record my podcast show, and I'm gonna show you behind the scene of my podcast titled Talking and Reading from Japan. It's my regular podcast show in which I read my memoirs that I wrote and talk about anything about it. And before recording the actual podcast, I'll show you my preparation for recording the show here on livecast. So I rehearse here. I'll do rough reading here. And I get on the actual recording of the show. And you witness everything of behind my podcast show here. So I hope you enjoy. I'm doing this recording on a regular basis, and usually I record 2 shows. And today I also record 2 shows of the podcast. And so after I finish the first recording, I'll come back to you, and then I'll prepare for the second one, and I'll do the recording, and then I'll come back to you again. And there, I'll I'd be happy to answer your questions or your comments. And so please feel free to give me any comment or questions if you have. I look forward to it. So, like I said, today is my recording day of my podcast show, Talking and Reading from Japan. And today, as usual, I'll record a show in which I read part of my memoirs. And today's memoir of mine is titled The Girl in Kyoto. It's like this. All the books I wrote are memoirs, so every single episode in it is what actually happened to me in my childhood or in my adult life. So there's no fiction in it, and sometimes the episode is quite embarrassing, but I wrote it and made it in the public anyway. So I maybe you find it interesting or funny because basically I'm a clumsy person, unfortunately. So many embarrassing happenings occurred to me in the course of my life, entire life, and it keeps happening every day. So I think you may find it funny, so you can laugh at me, please. So today's episode, I record 2 episodes today, and the first one is preparation now begins. I'll start with rough reading of this today's part of my reading. So you will listen to my reading twice in total, in a rough reading and in an actual recording. Now I'll do the rough reading of today's first recording. During the construction of my family's new house, many contractors and carpenters came and worked every day. As he lived in barns as a makeshift home at the edge of the construction site, I saw them regularly and had a crush on one of the carpenters. He would come to work by car and pass under a pedestrian bridge at the almost exact time every morning. I used the bridge to the elementary school, and every morning when I was walking on the bridge, his car passed beneath it. I waved at him, and he waved back at me every time. One day, while I was hanging around near the construction site, he came up to me and handed me a keychain in which miniature playing cards were contained. He said it was a small gift for me. I was over the moon, but that was the last time I saw him. Because the construction company executive ran away with all the money my family had paid, the pay for the workers stopped. The construction was abandoned and no one came to work anymore. Only a carpenter with craftsmanship who carved beautiful patterns on the wooden thresholds came to continue his work without pay after his new job. But the carpenter I had a crush on never showed, and his car never passed under the pedestrian bridge. I cherished the miniature playing cards for a long time. This is the section for today's first recording. And now I'll give this section a title. And usually I think about the title here, but this one's title has already been decided because if you happen to join me the last time on this live cast, you saw my recording was abruptly stopped because of a technical difficulty. So last time I aborted the recording of this part of the book, and so during the actual recording I aborted, and so in that live cast the last time here, I've already decided the title of this episode, and its title was A Keychain. Now, I think all the preparation for the first recording has been done here, and now I start to record my podcast show. I hope you stay there, and join me while I'm recording. Let's do it together, shall we? Okay. Now I'll turn on camera for podcasts. And set the camera. And I don't like my looks. I hate my looks, but I can't do anything about it. Okay. Camera is set. Now it's a recording time. There are many cameras around me. Hi Bigo Live. Hi YouTube. Hi Instagram. Now let's get on recording, shall we? I'll come back to you after the recording. Hi, welcome to Talking and Reading from Japan. I'm your host, Hidemi Woods. Here, I read part of my memoirs I wrote and talk about anything related or unrelated to it. I hope you enjoy with me. Today, I'm gonna read an episode from the books I wrote titled The Girl in Kyoto. Today's episode I'm reading is called A Keychain. This is about a keychain that one of the carpenters gave me when my house was being rebuilt. A keychain. During the construction of my family's new house, many contractors and carpenters came and worked every day. As we lived in barns as a makeshift home at the edge of the construction site, I saw them regularly and had a crush on one of the carpenters. He would come to work by car and pass under a pedestrian bridge at the almost exact time every morning. I used the bridge to the elementary school, and every morning when I was walking on the bridge, his car passed beneath it. I waved at him, and he waved back at me every time. One day, while I was hanging around near the construction site, he came up to me and handed me a keychain in which miniature playing cards were contained. He said it was a small gift for me. I was over the moon. But that was the last time I saw him. Because the construction company executive ran away with all the money my family had paid, the pay for the workers stopped. The construction was abandoned, and no one came to work anymore. Only a carpenter with craftsmanship who carved beautiful patterns on the wooden thresholds came to continue his work without pay after his new job. But the carpenter I had a crush on never showed, and his car never passed under the pedestrian bridge. I cherished the miniature playing cards for a long time. That was today's episode. It happened when our family's house was rebuilt when I was 9 years old. And my parents encountered a fraud that a small local construction company executive ran away with all the money our family paid. And so it was a big huge setback, and it was because my family's house was quite big. The money my family paid was not small, so it's a big crime, I guess. But none of my family members reported to the police because especially my parents were so vain, and they prioritized how they look to the neighbors, or how the neighbors or relatives, their acquaintances, thought about them over their really bad situation. They just wanted to hide the crime, although they were the victims, not the criminals, but they tried to hide the fact they encountered fraud. So they didn't report it to the police, and they just every night my parents and my grandparents were talking and thinking and over what they should do. And eventually the payment for the workers stopped, so no one came to work. But I didn't know that as a child, so I assumed the carpenter I had a crush on came to the construction site as usual, but he also stopped coming. But before the day before he stopped coming, he gave me this keychain, and I really cherished it. And in hindsight, he knew that was his last day to work for us, so he kindly gave it to me, that keychain, as a farewell gift. But but I didn't know, so I was so devastated the next day when I learned he would never come to work for us and I would never see him again. But only one carpenter, he continued to come, although we didn't pay for him. He just wanted to finish his work for our house. That was to carve the threshold over a Japanese type room. It's called kamoi in Japanese. There are in a Japanese style room where which floor has tatami. A door is a sliding door, and above the sliding door, between the sliding door and the ceiling, there is some space, and usually the space is filled with a board of wood. And in our family's house, that board was not just a board. they our family wanted to put a decorated board of wood. So sometimes a big temple or a shrine has it, a similar decoration above the sliding door. And they wanted in our house. My parents, my family wanted it. And that board of wood has a carving, and that carving was that carpenter's particular job because he was extremely good at it. It was so beautiful. I was just a child. Although I was just a child, I was able to see the difference. I was able to appreciate how beautiful, how superb his work was. His carving was art. So elaborate, and so it had such craftsmanship, and it was a minute elaborate art, a piece of art. And that carpenter wanted to finish it, so he, without pay, he came to our house and continued to carve that wooden threshold. After all, my family managed to find a solution to complete the construction. They they found one of our relatives was actually running his own construction company quite far from where I lived. At that time, I lived in Kyoto, and he was a relative who happened to have his own construction company, and we asked him to finish the work, and with a really small amount of money, because by explaining, we were conned, and he so sympathized for us, and he took on the job almost nothing, and took on the job with paying almost nothing, and our house was thankfully completed thanks to him. And it was such a big turmoil back then, but the house was finished, and we moved into it, and it was 9 years old, and I left home when I was 21 years old. So I lived there about 12 years, for 12 years. And after I left home, my parents, my grandparents, and my parents, and my sister lived there, continued to live there. But about 8 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago, my parents failed their business and lost inherited money that they were inherited from ancestors. They lost everything, and they needed to sell the house. So there was no other way other than selling the house. And by that time, my grandparents passed away. So, and my sister lived abroad. And so my parents sold the house and moved out. And the house was demolished along with that beautiful wooden threshold that the carpenter worked without being paid. That piece of art was gone forever. Well, that's all for today. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy with me. If you are interested, the other memoirs of mine are available. You can read all the books I wrote on my website, hidemiwoods.com, hidemi.woods.com. So if you are interested, please visit there, where my songs, my blogs, of course my books, and all the links to SNS or podcasts, livecasts, anything was there. Even my original brand, where my own illustration, where merchandise that features my own original illustrations. So if you like, why don't you visit there once in a while? See you next time. Thanks for listening again. I'm Hidemi Woods. Until next time, take care and be well. Okay, are you still there? The first recording of the show is done. It's a little bit had a sad ending, didn't it? But I couldn't help it. Um, I couldn't think of any funny ending for this particular episode. It was not such a happy experience, so what can I do about it? Anyway, now that the first recording was done, I'll begin to prepare for the second recording of the show. Those who are just joining me, I'm recording my podcast show, Talking and Reading from Japan, and this is behind the scene of my podcast show. The second one is from the same book as well, The Girl in Kyoto. And now I'll start with rough reading here. So, okay, it's like this. A Japanese house has a door plate at its entrance. Typically, the surname of a household is written on it. Some families also add the first names of each family member on it. When I lived in my hometown with my grandparents, our house had a big wooden board as a door plate at the gate. It had looked strange to me because the full name of my grandfather was written on it instead of just our surname. As a child, I didn't understand why other members' names of my family weren't on it. Our plate said as if he lived alone. It was hung high at the gate with his full name proudly written with a writing brush. I'd gradually felt like I was going in his kingdom instead of coming home. The board had been getting on my nerves, and finally I asked my father why our house had an annoying door plate like that. He didn't seem to care because it had been there since his childhood. I summoned the courage to ask my grandfather directly why only his name was on the family plate. His answer was the same one that he gave me when I asked him why I couldn't have a dog. Because it was his house. His theory was always that he's a landlord and other family members are tenants. Door plate had become a symbol of my grandfather's dictatorship to me. I even asked him once if he knew democracy, and his reply was, "Take it outside. This is my house." My father couldn't stand my constant complaints about the door plate and found the solution for me. He joyfully took me to the back door to show me something. On the small wooden back door, a piece of paper was scotch-taped. All names of my family were written in my father's handwriting on it. It was his handmade door plate. The back door faced an alley that was used mostly only by a mailman. He claimed that it was our new door plate, which was no longer a plate nor a board, and no one would see. While my grandfather's name was grandly shown at the front gate, ours became illegible quickly because of rain. When our house was rebuilt, high-grade lumber was selected as the main pillar in the middle of the house. Inside the joint to the roof, though invisible from the outside, my grandfather's name was deeply carved into the lumber. That was the second episode for today's recording. That was also about the time when our family was being rebuilt. It was a big event as a child. The old house stood there over 100 years old, and by the time my family decided to rebuild the house, the old one was almost unlivable. It leaked, and the earth wall was crumbling down to the floor. It was awful. And although my father and also my grandfather all lived there from their childhoods, there was no choice but rebuilding the house, demolishing it and rebuilding the house. So I lived there for 9 years since I was from the time I was born and to the time the house was rebuilt. So in total, I lived there for 9 years. But almost all the my childhood memories belong to that old house, because was the main part of my childhood life. So I still miss that unlivable, awful house, because not so happy memories, but the most childhood memories were there. So this episode also is related to rebuilding the house. But anyway, that door plate was hung in the gate, and when we rebuilt the house, the gate remained as it was. So we didn't demolish or rebuild the gate. The gate itself formed a small building. So our gate building remained the same where it had been. So the door plate was also there, remained there until the entire new house was demolished when my parents lost their money. Okay, so this is the second episode, and I need to decide the title for it. And title. It's quite simple, don't you think? I guess the door plate. the door plate. This episode's title is door plate. Okay, I'll write it down for a future reference. The door plate. Get down. Now the preparation is over, and I'll get on to recording the second show of the day. After the recording, I'll come back to you, and if you have some comments or questions, feel free to ask me. I'll answer those as much as I can after the recording when I come back to you. Then let's record the second show together. Setting camera again. Camera is set. I hate my looks. And now let's start recording. What's this? Okay. Let's start. Hi, welcome to Talking and Reading from Japan. I'm your host, Hidemi Woods. I read an episode from the memoirs I wrote and talk about it or anything that I feel like talking to you. I hope you enjoy with me. Today, I'll read part of one of my memoirs titled The Girl in Kyoto. All the memoirs I wrote actually happened to me when I was a child. And today's episode also described what happened at one point of my childhood. Today's episode is called The Door Plate. It's about our family's door plate that was hung on the gate of my family's house in Kyoto. The door plate. A Japanese house has a door plate at its entrance. Typically, the surname of a household is written on it. Some families also add the first names of each family member on it. When I lived in my hometown with my grandparents, our house had a big wooden board as a doorplate at the gate. It had looked strange to me because the full name of my grandfather was written on it instead of just our surname. As a child, I didn't understand why other members' names of my family weren't on it. Our plate said as if he lived alone. It was hung high at the gate with his full name proudly written with a writing brush. I'd gradually felt like I was going in his kingdom instead of coming home. The board had been getting on my nerves, and finally I asked my father why our house had an annoying doorplate like that. He didn't seem to care because it had been there since his childhood. I summoned the courage to ask my grandfather directly why only his name was on the family plate. His answer was the same one that he gave me when I asked him why I couldn't have a dog. Because it was his house. His theory was always that he's a landlord and other family members are tenants. The doorplate had become a symbol of my grandfather's dictatorship to me. I even asked him once if he knew democracy. And his reply was, "Take it outside. This is my house." My father couldn't stand my constant complaints about the doorplate and found the solution for me. He joyfully took me to the back door to show me something. On the small wooden back door, a piece of paper was scotch-taped. All names of my family were written in my father's handwriting on it. It was his handmade doorplate. The back door faced an alley that was used mostly only by a mailman. He claimed that it was our new doorplate, which was no longer a plate nor a board, and no one would see. While my grandfather's name was grandly shown at the front gate, ours became illegible quickly because of rain. When our house was rebuilt, high-grade lumber was selected as the main pillar in the middle of the house. Inside the joint to the roof, though invisible from the outside, my grandfather's name was deeply carved into the lumber. That was today's episode. The doorplate that was hung on the gate of my family's house was a big symbol of my grandfather's ego to me. As a Japanese old custom, according to it, the family was quite big because after the firstborn son gets married, he lived with his parents, with his newly wed wife and had a child there. So the household was naturally big. And if that family had no son, the firstborn daughter took her husband into the family and lived her parents together. So, in either case, they lived all together. 2 generations lived together was quite common in a Japanese old style time. And my family was no exception. And since I was born, I had lived with my grandparents and my parents. And because my parents were quite busy for work, I was mainly raised by my grandparents. So to me, my grandparents were much more like my own parents. And my parents were, to me, were like my brother and sister. Because my parents and I and my sister were all afraid of my grandfather. He ruled my family strictly as a dictator and laid the tight rein over us. And he was the king of my family, and we were all servants for him. We never talked back to him. We never opposed to him. We just needed to say yes to him. Even though he told us something irrational, something crazy, something stupid, we just nodded our heads and said yes. So he was a really strict parent for me, and he taught everything for life for me. So although I hated him, I can't deny that I was deeply influenced by him. And I notice even now, something I do unconsciously was eerily resemble to what my grandfather did. So it's scary in a way, because it may say that I am becoming like my grandfather. It's such a scary thought. Anyway, like that, my grandfather was a king of our family, and my house was his kingdom. And so my parents, my grandmother, and my sister and I was just renting piece of his land inside the house. We were just tenants or servants. And my grandfather showed how important he was in his family by that door plate. His full name was written on it. As if the other members of the family didn't live there, because we were invisible on the surface of the door plate. We didn't, our name didn't show. So every time I went through the gate when I came home from school or came from outside, I felt like I'm visiting my grandfather not coming home, because the gate said his name grandly. And as a child, it was getting my nerves day by day. And finally, I just broke. I just couldn't take it anymore. And I introduced democracy to my grandfather. I dared. And he didn't have ears for that information. He ignored it. But I was spared from his scolding. That was a relief. And but I just behind my grandfather's back, I kept complaining about it, about his dictatorship, about anything. His rules, his stupid rules, his foolish rules to my father. And he came up with his handwriting door plate that was soon washed away by rain, and just smudged weird piece of paper was stuck on a small wooden back door of our house. But my grandfather, for some reason, really liked to show his name to everywhere. He was nobody. Basically. But he just wanted to show his name any chance he got. Like a door plate is one example. And if a shrine had a drive for donation, and he he was, although my grandfather was such a thrifty, stingy man, he was willing to donate money to a shrine or a temple only because for in 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 return his name was carved on a pillar of the decorational pillar of the garden front yard of the shrine or temple. Just having his name carved, he donated money, quite some money, to a shrine or a temple. He liked his name shown that degree. Or he, in his late years, he was chairman of Chrysanthemum Association of Kyoto. And he also was a chairman of a local senior club. And a local paper sometimes happen to pick up a topic of those associations or clubs. Sometimes his name appeared on the paper, local paper, as a small topic, and because he was a chairman. And then, once he found his name on the paper, of course, he clipped it, and he outlined in red beside his name and showed us. And he bragged about his name was on the newspaper. And beside the Japanese letters are written on a not vertically, horizontally, not vertically. So his name was written, his name on the paper appeared vertically, and so he outlined beside his name in red and showed other family members, although we duly knew his name. But look, my name is on the paper. And that topic is not important. It was not news. It's just the newspaper company was struggle to fill that day's space and short of topics or events or news. So they just suffered from the space filling. That was why they chose that small, unimportant event and topic, and they printed it. But to my grandfather was a big achievement because his name was on the newspaper. He liked to get his name in public that much. So how important for him to see his name was in public was precisely represented on that doorplate of our family. So he also carved his own name on the main pillar when our family's house was rebuilt, although no one could see. No one could see from outside, but he always mentioned us that main pillar had my name on it, although we duly knew it. And he bragged about his name appearance constantly. But he, although he liked his name that much, and we just unwillingly followed his way and allowed him to do what he liked to do. After he passed away, the house was torn down because my parents couldn't afford to keep it when they failed their business. And they spent all the money they inherited from my grandparents, or more accurately from the ancestors, generation after generation. My parents threw away all the money they inherited, and so they couldn't keep the house, so they had to sell the house. And when they sold the house, that happened after I left home. The entire house was demolished, including the gate building. So my grandfather's doorplate and the main pillar that had my grandfather's name carved were all gone when the house was demolished. When I left home to become a musician, my parents fiercely opposed it because I was the firstborn daughter, and I was supposed to succeed the family, but I refused and left home. So, for some reason, for some insane reason, although they sold the house because my parents failed their own business, to this day, they blamed me. They believed that I was I was the one who made the house demolished, because I was the one who abandoned the succession of the family, and so they just didn't see their failure, and they put it to my faults, and that was why I deeply believe that my parents are insane. Well, that's all for today. Thanks for listening. I'm Hidemi Woods. Other books of mine and my songs, or my entire articles are available on my website, hidemiwoods.com, HIDEMI woods.com. So if you like, please visit my website, where all the links to my works and SNS and my merchandise that features my own illustrations are available. Thanks for listening again. I hope to see you again soon. Until next time, take care and be well. Okay, the second recording is done, which means today's work is all done. Phew. The second one went quite long, don't you think? 10 minutes or 8 minutes longer than usual, but it happens. Anyway, that was my today's work for recording my podcast show, Talking and Reading from Japan. You can hear that podcast wherever you get your podcasts, almost any platform it's available. So if you like, try to listen to that show. And also this live cast, by the way, someone gave me a comment. My door plate is empty for security. My door plate is empty for security reasons. Yeah, I think most, especially I think Western people don't show their names on a door plate because it's not secure. Now I don't put up a door plate either now. So I think that was a smart way not to put up a door plate nowadays. But I don't know about other Asian countries, but Japan still a lot of Japanese households put up a droplet on which their last name is shown. I think it's not so secure, but they do that anyway. And this live cast is also available on Bigo Live, YouTube, and Instagram. So if you like, if you follow me there, I'd be greatly appreciated. I thank you in advance. And also, those who just joining me, live cast. I'm doing this live cast for to show behind the scenes of my podcast show, Talking and Reading from Japan. And I want to say that lately, out of nowhere, my T-shirts that feature my original drawings has been selling quite nicely, and it's so I just why it starts selling is a mystery, but anyway, it's a big boost for me, big encouragement. So in case in really the slightest, smallest, tiniest case, if you who purchased my original T-shirts happen to listen, happen to watch this live cast, I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, because as a struggling singer-songwriter, it helps me a lot financially. It's like it's not like sales profit anymore. It's more like donation for me. So I just thank you who purchased my original T-shirts. If you are interested, as like I said in the recording, I have all the merchandise available on my website. So visit there. You can find my original songs as well, my other books, my book blogs. So I'll wait for you to visit me there. So it's all the work for today, and it's June, and Japan is having annual rainy season, And this year it's weirdly late, and the rainy season hasn't arrived where I live, and it's strangely late for the rainy season, but it's soon rains. It soon comes, the rainy season, and we have a rainy day every day, day after day, but sometimes no rain comes, and dry rainy season it ends up as a dry rainy season. It's strange as it sounds. Anyway, I soon it's late, but soon it's gonna be the rainy season, and climate is awfully strange everywhere lately, isn't it? So you take care of yourself and be healthy and be peaceful. I really appreciate you joining me today, and I do this on a regular basis, so please follow me and or just find me doing this again and drop by, come here and have fun with me, please. Thanks again today. I'm signing off. Until next time. さよなら。お元気で。Take care. Bye. Bye for now.